Digging today. We're digging for some black gold. Yee-haw!
Well, I dreamed I saw the silver spaceships flying in the yellow haze of the sun. There were children crying and colors flying all around the chosen ones. All in a dream, all in a dream. The loading had begun. Flying Mother Nature's silver seed to a new home in the sun.
Hey, welcome in. I'm Tommy.
I'm John.
And this is week 4 of our weekly gardening series. As the title of this video suggests, we're going to take you on a little journey. We're going to find some of that rich black soil that's great for topping your beds. And the purpose of this video is kind of to explain the importance of soil health and give you some pointers on how you can build soil health up in your own gardens, no matter where you are in the world.
This is not a one-size-fits-all proposition. So what we're doing here is making use of resources we have available, as you shall see. And those are things to think about where you are. What is your soil type? What resources do you have available? It's really a kind of customized kind of thing.
Yep, and as my dad said, none of these videos are one size fits all. What we do is not going to work anywhere, or not. It might work somewhere. It's not going to work everywhere exactly how we do it, because everyone's got different growing conditions. And kind of the most important thing about gardening is learning how to work with what you got in your location, because the local solutions are often the best ones.
Absolutely.
Now, I want to reiterate, the main purpose of these videos, I think, is to show how we're doing it and to show you our passion for it, to inspire you to be able to do it at home. So, yep, we're about to get started. We're going to go on a little field trip first. This video will include a little demonstration on both our at-home composting, some mulch and soil collection from our local brush dump, and also how to apply compost and mulch to your garden beds in a way that's going to be really good. So yeah, we're going to show you how to get the best stuff, the best organic material for your garden beds in this video.
So Tommy, let's go treasure hunting.
Let's do it. So welcome in here, folks. Me and my parents, my dad John and my mother Carolyn, who's going to be our special guest and videographer today, are in our trusty Ford Escape, kind of our dump car, and we're headed out to the brush dump. We're gonna go see what we can find out there. Now, the rules at the brush dump in Playin County, if you aren't familiar with it, and most localities probably have a brush dump like this, where you can bring your leaves, your old sticks, any sort of yard waste you have that you don't want to end up in the landfill. You can bring it to the brush dump for a discounted price. So you gotta pay to drop stuff off there, but it's not quite as much as a load of trash. And they'll compost it there for you. Now, the really neat thing about the brush dump, and particularly at least the one here in Playin County, is that you can take anything away for free. And so what is one man's trash can truly become another man's treasure there. And today we've got our 9 trusty blue buckets here. We've got a couple of shovels, and like I said, me and my parents are here headed out to the brush dump. We're gonna go see what we can find. We'll be back from the hills of black gold. See you guys soon. So we're out here at the brush dump now. Giddy up. My dad says giddy up, cowboy. And we're headed back. You got it, Room Dad. You can see we got
Try that again.
some mountains here of old brush. And we're backing up into it. You can see it's a beautiful day out here.
Mom, you pull through?
I think I'm all right.
Mom's doing all right.
All right.
Here we are.
So the eagle has landed.
Alrighty, folks, so we're back out here at the brush dump. You can see we got our nice pocket here. We've dug into the side of this mountain of compost, and you can see this mountain extends all the way, almost as far as the eye can see that way, and it's rich with with life on top of it. There's all sorts of native plants. These tall stocky things are actually old sunflowers, and it appears that we are the first people to ever have dug into it. But all the life on top suggests that this is some of the richest soil around, and as soon as you dig in, you begin to realize this stuff is just marvelous. And so my dad's digging around in here, mom's hanging out with us, checking it all out. We're having a good old time down at the brush dump, digging for some gold. I'm gonna take you up. There's actually, it's not just one of these massive hills with this beautiful soil, but there's actually 3 of them back to back to back, and they go down, like I said, about 200 feet each. I imagine this is about 30 to 40 years of compost, and it's just here for the taking for anyone who wants to come dig. And we've been using it on all our plants. It's some really brilliant organic matter. If you want to see, there's actually some cool native plants around here growing as my dad continues to dig. This is one of my favorites. This is called sorrel, and people actually grow this as a crop, but it is native to a lot of places. And you can just rip some right here. A little bitter, kind of fruity, and it's an amazing green. It's got tons of protein, tons of nutrients. It pulls them up from deep in the ground.
Particularly rich right here.
My dad is finding new mines all the time. He's quite a prospector. He says, "Dad, what's your favorite line when you're searching for dirt, Monty Python?"
Dennis, there's some good filth over here.
And of course, this stuff is not really filth. It is.
No,
It is.
the opposite.
Like we said, one man's trash is another man's treasure. So let me just show you again what we're working with here out at the brush dump. This is some black gold. I mean, this is some really...
This particular, it's interesting how it all is very, very nice, but different pockets will have slightly different character. And of course, based on what was decomposing there over probably decades. This soil right here, this compost I should say, and turning into soil, has a particularly nice, spongy yet not compacting feel. It doesn't compact, it lets go, which is good tilth. And you can see the remnants of all kinds of wood chips that were in here. So we expect this will be a very fine top dressing, and also
potting soil.
Can be used for potting soil, especially probably mixed with some other things.
If you want to take this, Dad. Here.
But yeah, Tommy.
So the biggest problem a lot of people have when trying to start a garden is they don't have great soil. And so you end up going to the store and you get Miracle Grow or some other potting soil, and you can pay a lot of money for it. But meanwhile, all this is just sitting here, and it's great. This is leaf mulch, wood mulch, and that is some of the highest carbon and organic matter you can find anywhere. And to have a rich garden, you've got to have good life in the soil. You can almost feel it here, and I'm sure you can see it through the camera, just how rich this stuff is. So good stuff. I hope you can find a source like this, and we'll show you more from our home compost pile.
Yeehaw!
So the second ingredient you'll really need, in addition to that compost, is some good looking mulch. And we have found quite a wealth of it here at the brush dump. You can see in this bucket, these appear to be some old oak grindings.
Yeah,
and
they appear to be stump grindings.
Yep, so this is a special kind of mulch. As my dad said, they're called stump grindings. And they're from the stump, and it's a different machine than your normal mulcher. And it gets everything really nice and fine. And you can see a lot of this is already like half broken down. So it plays the dual job of simultaneously holding moisture into the soil and also releasing nutrients like compost. And so it's really the perfect top coat to put on over your leaf compost that we just collected, which happened to be right down that trail there. So 2-for-1 shopping here at the brush dump. We've got our compost and our mulch, and then we'll be ready to top dress our beds later this afternoon. Alrighty, so we're headed out of the brush dump now. We got about 136 gallons of organic material here next to me, along with 3 humans in the car. So we got 5 big buckets full of compost and 3 of mulch. And yeah, it's all for free, all at your disposal, and none of it comes from a factory. It's all just yard waste, and that's really a beautiful thing. So always try to think of ways that you can use the resources that are available in your community. And next we'll be showing you how to make use of the resources that come from your own kitchen, and your own yard. So by composting at home. And so our next tutorial will be about composting. So we'll be right back from home. Alrighty, welcome back in. We are back from the brush dump, and our next section, as I said, is going to be a little bit about composting. Now, I'm no composting expert, but I've been on a couple composting panels, which is kind of funny because I never have really done terribly much composting. I've always tried, but pretty much what I've always said on the panels is you kind of just get a pile of stuff and you put it down there and you let it sit. And then it rots down and you got some rich soil underneath there. So there's thousands of different formulations for how compost works. There's different mixtures of green and browns, and the point of this video is not to show you exactly what you're going to need to put in your compost, but like we can list off a bunch of things you can put in it real quick.
Grass clippings for greens, and greens and browns, if when in doubt, you can go 50-50. Browns, things that are carbon rich, so that would be like leaves, mulch, definitely leaves and mulch, you know, ground up sticks, that kind of thing.
Yep, and things like coffee grounds, eggshells, any kitchen waste you've got is great to put in your compost. But again, the purpose of this video is not to show you exactly what to put in your compost. We're actually just going to show you a little demonstration on our compost pile and how to remove the soil from it. So we found a pretty easy at-home way to do so. So we'll show you that real quick. So here's our little at-home compost pile, and you can see it's just kind of 4 T-posts and some chicken wire around the outside. So relatively low maintenance, low cost setup we got going here. This stuff is a mixture of food and yard waste. Now, an important step before you can remove any soil from it to put on your garden, you're gonna have to turn the compost, as my dad is doing right now. And you'll want to turn the compost probably once every 3 to 5 days. The temperature inside there right now, so if I actually reach my hand down in, Dad, don't cut off my hand. If I reach down in there, it's about 25 to 30 degrees hotter than it is outside. And sometimes down in the center there, it can get up to like 140 degrees. So you want to turn it. There's a lot of science out there on this. Again, I'm no scientist, but turning it keeps it active, keeps air inside, lets the water inside, and keeps everything moving around, keeps the worms happy in there, and it'll start to cook down a little bit quicker. So as my dad's going to give it a few turns, and then we're going to show how to remove wonderful soil from the compost pile.
Okay, so here's my son Tommy, and he's still turning the compost a bit.
So as you can see in this pile, you can already see as we've been turning it, there's a ton of soil just sitting in here, but it is mixed in still with some scraps of other stuff. We're going to go ahead and take this, put it in the wheelbarrow here. I'm going to dig deep in there, get a few good scoops. And you can see a lot of stuff breaking down in here. So once you get a little bit in your wheelbarrow there, we're just doing a little today. We'll come on over here, and we have this old rusty fire pit. And this is probably one of my favorite tasks in the world. I just discovered it. But this is compost sifting. And you get something like this with a tight mesh. Dad, you can come over a little closer so they can see. You want to have a pretty tight grid here of so not the big stuff gets through, but just the soil gets through there. And then you kind of sift like this, like you're panning for gold. black gold. And
if you don't have an old rusty fire pit that just came in your yard like we did, these are easy to construct using roughly 3/8" squares hardware cloth and some 2x4s, and you can build yourself a compost sifter. Plenty of plans out there on the internet too.
Yeah, and we've been hoping to do that, but we haven't gotten the materials yet. So for now, this works just great.
But
we'll
any screen you can get it through. And
so
right now it's kind of interesting because it doesn't look like we're doing perhaps a whole lot of good by doing this, but I think you can anticipate what's going to come out underneath.
So yep, just a little bit more sifting here. There's a lot of dirt going through the screen right now, and that's all good broken down food scraps and lots of nutrients for your plants. So this is an easy process to sift out your compost, which is in the midst of breaking down, from the stuff that's already ready to go in your garden. So yep, I'm just rubbing it through like a gold miner.
Black
Shaking
gold.
out. Let's see what we got. That
Okay.
was just a couple minutes there.
So you'll see some finished product here. And Tommy, how would you describe the texture and the feel of it?
You know, it's an interesting thing because it falls easily out of your hands like this, so it's a little bit granular. But if you push it together and compact it, you can see it's like a ball too. And so it's almost like the best of both worlds because it's going to let the air get down into the soil, but it's also going to hold moisture really nicely, and it's rich with nutrients too. So this is the kind of stuff that can make your day, and it's really easy with a at-home composting sifter.
You can use this with to make a type of potting soil, to make potting soil. Sometimes it's good to mix it with some sand and even an item called perlite. Yeah.
Yep. So you got anything else, Dad?
I would just say that Tommy and I are looking into also ways to sift as efficiently as we can. But even you saw there in just 2 minutes, and I wish I could ship this through the video and let you feel it, but it has an incredible feel to it. Again, if you try, okay, I'm trying to push it together like that as hard as I can, and it will, as Tommy said, it will immediately, upon the slightest pressure, break apart. So that is good tilth, good friability, and this is going to improve the toughest of soils. So this is a good product to have.
Yeah, and for all these things, including mulch, compost, and this at-home compost that we've got, everything we showed you in the video so far, you keep adding this to your garden year after year, and you're gonna see some amazing results and just ultra soft beds. You're not gonna have to till, and you're gonna grow some great vegetables and flowers. So we'll show you how to apply compost and mulch to the bed later on, but for now we're gonna take a little break. My dad's got one more point.
So my last point is this is one of many ways to compost. So this is not the end of the story by any means. This is one of many ways, and we'll be sharing with you. For example, there is a way that you can grow what we call green manures or cover crops in the garden, and we can achieve composting with those, but that'll come in future lessons. So just know that it's one of multiple ways to achieve compost.
Always want to save on to whatever organic material you can, because whether it's green manure like my dad was saying, which is cover crops, or compost or grass clippings, no matter what it is, it's going to be good for your garden. So hold on to it. Okay, we'll be back soon. Alrighty, so we're back here in our garden here in Grinnell. The sun's just about to go down, and all three of the Hexter gang are out here. My mom's on the camera there, and me and my dad here. And we got all of our 3 organic materials that we gathered earlier today. You can see this is some of that leaf compost from the brush dump. This here is some of that compost from our home pile. And then over here, I'll bring it into sight. Yeah, we got our mulch from the brush dump. And what we're gonna do here, last week we showed you how to transplant, and this week we're gonna show you how to lock in those transplants by top dressing, as we like to call it. Mom, you can pan over here again. We're gonna top dress this bed, which we just transplanted, which is cauliflower, broccoli, Brussels sprouts, and kale. It's just your assortment of brassicas, kind of a
Hodgepodge.
a nice brassica family. And so this
Grow
half,
well together. Yep.
this half over here has already been top dressed, or locked in, as my dad likes to call it. And the reason we call it locked in is because it locks in the bed in such a way that you're not going to have to provide too much care for it until you actually harvest the vegetables. And so what we're going to do, you see my dad here, the first step of locking in a bed is watering. The main goal of locking in the bed is to lock in the moisture. So in case you have a drought, or in case you have too much flooding, then you've always got a consistent supply of moisture here. So since we're in a drought right now, my dad just watered it nice and good. And now we're gonna start, the second goal of top dressing is to fertilize. And so we're applying some of this nice organic matter.
When you get around your plants, there's an old standby which is just lift and tuck. So you want to kind of lift very gently, of course, lift your leaves up, tuck a little of that. You don't have to press it real hard or anything, or you can press it lightly, and you're really sort of mulching with compost, basically spreading. I like to use my fingertips. Tommy, how do you feel about the fingertip thing?
Dad, as soon as you taught me the fingertips, I knew I was in love. It just feels good to get your fingers.
We're really just playing in the dirt, but anyway.
Well, it's so amazing. These are seeds that we started about 2 months ago, and to see them coming into the field here and ready to go in the ground is it's quite a joy. And I hope that some of you guys at home can take something away from this. So yeah, so this first layer is that initial compost, the leaf compost from the brush dump. And now we're going to add some of our second layer of compost. You can always just use one layer, but if you got to, you might as well.
This was the material that you remember we sifted with our backyard burning device there, fire pit, that happened to have the right kind of grate. And so this is fresh out of our own compost pile, and it's been sifted, but it's not necessary, as Tommy just indicated, to use different types, but we like to mix it up a little bit.
Now, the good thing about your compost is your nutrients, and so as soon as a nice rain comes down through here, all of the nutrients from this compost are going to leach down into the soil for the roots of the plants to get, and it's going to really give them a nice boost. And besides that, like my dad said, we're kind of mulching, so it's also helping hold in some moisture in there. And yep, you can see that's a nice layer of compost. It looked good before, and it looks even nicer now with some compost on it. And now the final layer.
Why don't we tell you what, we'll fill this bucket up, and then both of us can do some of this. This is our wood chip mulch. One thing you probably want to stay away from is wood chips or sawdust or something like that that's real fresh, like right off the chainsaw, or right, from a tree that's been handled very recently. Those type of products may be effective in a walkway, but not where you're trying to grow things.
Big reason for that is that that fresh mulch, that stuff that, even the stuff you get from the store that they say is good for garden beds and stuff, it's so big that it actually tends to pull more nutrients out of the soil than you're actually getting. And there's a lot of research out there on that. Now this stuff that we have here, the stump grindings, you can see it's really fine, pretty granular, and it's almost compost in and of itself. So within 3 to 4 months of sitting on top of this bed in the hot sun, it's gonna look just like dirt. But for now, it's holding in the moisture during this time of drought. You can see the fingertip method.
You want this to be a bit aged too. We suspect that what we picked up here has a few years behind it, so that you don't want to put a real fresh wood product on, as we indicated. Some age to it is a good thing. We'll lock in moisture.
There's other
make
ways.
less work for you.
Other ways you can mulch too include grass clippings, and I mean, you can mulch with just about anything if you try hard enough. I don't know if that's exactly right, but a great part about mulch too is that it holds down the weeds. So a lot of people think that the worst part of gardening is getting down in the weeds. Well, this will pretty much eliminate any weeds from coming through here. So that's a very nice thing, and like I said, you can pretty much just come back when all these brassicas are ready to harvest, and we'll have some dinner. But voila!
Optional step at this point is to water again. Now water on top of the mulch. One thing that we did here was leave a little room around each plant where we didn't apply very much, if any, mulch, and that allows water to get to the plant. You kind of can get an ideal setup where you're not really getting a whole lot of water penetration in between, which in a sense can keep your weeds at bay, but you're getting water to the plant right there where it's needed. So that's another aspect of this. Of course, the mulch will also, as Tommy indicated, will hold water in, and the idea is to try to build a low maintenance system.
And if there's a really heavy rain, it'll actually absorb some of the water so that your soil doesn't get all flooded, which is another benefit. So it's really a good water moderator. It helps with, what's that word I'm looking for?
Capillary?
Yeah, capillary action. It helps the roots. Everything here, adding the organic material, makes space in the soil that helps the roots be able to pull that water and all the nutrients from deep in there. And
we hope it will help you in this type of gardening and help us this year with this bed. It's also, though, an investment in the future, because you come back to a bed like this the next gardening year, and much of this, perhaps even all of it, as Tommy's indicated, will be breaking down or broken down, and
we can plant right into it. We won't even have to till. There probably won't be many weeds.
It really is a great kind of goal. Carolyn, maybe you could pan over to the deeper system over here with the peas and the broccoli, and you can kind of see we've really built up some soil and compost and mulch, and an idea that as we continue to work our garden is to eventually be able to have a no-till system.
Yeah.
As Tommy is discussing.
Yeah. All right. So, Mom, if you want to pan back over to us. Thanks for tuning in. We're gonna have a couple more sections. We're gonna do a quick garden walkthrough, just so every week we'll do a little update on what's growing, and kind of so you can follow us throughout the season. We'll have that towards the end of our video. And then also new this week, we're going to introduce a Q&A section every week. So if you have questions at home on anything that we're doing, or just random questions about the food system, weeds you've got, philosophy, I mean, anything you want us to talk about, you can ask us in the comments or message us privately, and we'd be happy to address it in the next week's video. Just do it before next Saturday, the previous day before we post the video. And yep, we'll keep putting the Q&As in every video. So,
keep on growing, everybody.
Yep.
All right, enjoy the spring.
Alrighty, so as I said, we're going to do a little garden walkthrough here. My dad went in for a family Zoom call, but I just want to take you around, show you what we got growing at this point. Still pretty early in the growing season here in Iowa, but here's a view of our garden right now. So we've really opened up the place a little bit this year, and we're still hoping to expand a little more down this way. Definitely have some rows of flowers by the road. Probably do our cucumbers over by the driveway here on a nice trellis system. Trellising will be a later lesson on. But yeah, so here I'll just do a walkthrough. This will be potatoes in a couple weeks. Here you can see we've got some kale coming up. These were kale we transplanted a few days ago. I guess that was in our last video actually. They're starting to catch and grow a little bit. These are some early tomatoes we put in the ground. And it's probably still a little too early to put tomatoes in the ground. These guys were looking a little bit yellow in our hothouse, so we decided to pop them in. Here's some spinach. Following our square foot method of gardening, we've got 9 per square foot, and my cat actually wrecked a few of the spinach plants in there, so we replanted some seeds today, but soon we'll have some good spinach. Here's some broccoli plants. Looking pretty good, coming along nicely. This is rainbow Swiss chard, and if you look closely, you can already see the colors coming up. That's a red one. There's a nice yellow, and in a few more weeks you're really gonna be able to tell it's like a rainbow. Here's our onions. They're still coming along slowly. We got leeks over there too. They're coming along even more slowly. But just recently, our potatoes have begun to sprout. And if you don't know, potatoes are a member of the deadly nightshade family. So they are poisonous leaves. So do not eat those leaves. Or never feed anyone those leaves because they will kill you. Now, potatoes also, interestingly enough, were first cultivated by the Incas and the indigenous people of the Andes some 10,000 years ago. And very important crops, so we grow them here. These are strawberry plants, and you can see they're starting to flower here. Back home in Virginia, people are already getting fresh strawberries off their plants. Now these plants are a little younger, and it's been a little colder here, so nothing yet. Here's the bed that we just finished. This is our bed of arugula. We've been picking at it and eating it, so it looks a little skimpy, but in a few more weeks you can see. I mean, right now I'm gonna eat some of that because that looks too good to miss. Yeah, that's really nice. Row of radishes right here, all the way down. More radishes will be coming in here. We do a succession planting with radishes so that we get, once this crop is harvested, then we'll have another crop another 2 weeks later. This is a little nursery bed we've got going of a bunch of different brassicas, kale and cauliflower mainly. These are all carrot sprouts. You can see almost as far as the eye can see carrot sprouts. And carrots are very finicky. You gotta have nice kind of sandy soil to make those work, so we're excited to work with those. They're a little tough to work with, but such good eating. Now here we've got our horseradish. Pretty cool little plant there, if you ask me. And we've got some more arugula here that we've given a little more space to see what it does. A little experimental gardening. Gardening is all about experimenting. Now these are beets. And if you remember back to the chard, they look rather similar to the chard. And that is because beets and chard are actually the same plant. However, beets develop the root and chard develops the leaves. And that's pretty cool. All down here, we've got green beans planted pretty thickly in here. So this is gonna be a lot of bush beans in about 3 weeks. We planted those earlier. This is an Arctic crop called vit, and it can survive down to -20 degrees. It actually did overwinter here in Grinnell this last winter. It stayed green the entire time. Don't ask me how. And we planted it up here. Now, as you can see, it's beginning to go to seed because it is getting so hot out. And so this is not going to last in our garden too much longer. We will save the seeds to plant it again next winter. Really good eating. This bed we've got some more brassicas. And here is red iceberg lettuce. It's just getting ready to form its heads. It almost blends in with the mulch here, but it's that nice dark maroon color. We're getting over to the end of the garden here, so stick with me for one more minute. These are some new aronia berry bushes. Special thanks to John Clayton. He's a really great member of the Grinnell community here. So we've got 4 of those aronia berry bushes through here. And then in between the aronia berries are these beautiful blueberry bushes, which we just got yesterday, shipped in from Georgia for a great price from Willis Orchard. And they are supposed to produce 20 gallons of blueberries a year once they reach maturity. So we're gonna have more than we can eat over here, and plus you can start new plants from the stems of the old ones, which is very neat as well. So yeah, that's pretty much how we're looking here as of right now. Here's a little snapshot of our whole garden, and it will continue to grow, folks, I promise. Well, I don't promise, but I sure as hell hope so. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll be back again next week. Take care, y'all.